So now the lineup for next week's Republican presidential debate is set. 8 candidates will square off in prime time Tuesday night only on the Fox Business Network. Ben Carson, Donald Trump, Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, Jeb Bush, Carly Fiorina, John Kasich, and Rand Paul. They made it. 4 others will debate 2 hours earlier in the first debate, including Mike Huckabee and Chris Christie, both of whom for the first time will not be on the primetime debate stage. Before the lineup was announced, Governor Christie said he did not care where he wound up as long as he had a microphone somewhere.
I'll be on some stage one way or the other, and then no matter where I'm debating, I'll make an impression. And you want to throw a podium out here on the lawn, and we'll go and start debating with folks out here. I'm happy to do that, too.
Let's throw down. Chris Darwalt, Fox News digital politics editor. How are you, sir?
I'm well, my brother.
Let's get to the headline. How significant is this for Chris Christie not to make the primetime debate?
Huge. Now, Chris Christie has a plausible, if narrow, path to the Republican nomination. It's quite narrow, but it's predicated on the fact that New Hampshire is ornery and likes to be ornery, and the voters in New Hampshire could conceivably, it would require Jeb Bush succeeding in destroying Marco Rubio. A number of things would have to happen, but he can plausibly say, maybe I can get there. This makes it harder by a wide margin, though. This is not insignificant. Okay,
Mike Huckabee won Iowa in 2008.
Yeah.
What is his future now that he will not be on the main stage?
I don't see a path for Mike Huckabee to the Republican nomination. It's just his inability to break through in Iowa, the success of Ben Carson, the success of Donald Trump, the success of Ted Cruz has shown that Mike Huckabee isn't the guy in Iowa. Now, they got 12 weeks. Things change. But when we look at how much things have to change, it's a great deal for him, more even than Christie. And the problem for both of these guys is they're great debaters, right? Yeah. They're really good. They have good moments. They're good in debates. They just haven't been able to connect with voters.
And Lindsey Graham's he's had a pretty good showing too, right? So yeah, but he's not even going to be there, and neither would George Pataki. Do you now see more people dropping out, or do they hang on, as you mentioned, in the next 3 months?
Look, when you're a message candidate, when you're running to talk about your issue, and Lindsey Graham's running to talk about national security, you can keep that up for a while, and he's from a state that has an early primary, so he can get interviews, he can be part of the discussion, he can do that stuff. But now we're to the selection phase, and the elimination phase, where voters say, these are the people who are really running. And there's broad consensus in the polls that there are the haves, which are Trump, Carson, Marco Rubio, and Ted Cruz, that those are the people who are really contending for the nomination right now. And then there's everybody else. Now, that doesn't mean that out of everybody else, and we saw this before with Rick Santorum in 2012, that somebody who is in everybody else can have a late surge because Iowa also likes to be ornery. These things are possible, but right now we're seeing the contour of the race as it exists, and the Republicans need this because they've got to get serious about picking their nominee, or Hillary Clinton is going to knock them on their behind.
Just one more point on that. History tells us, as you reflect on Santorum, there will be a surprise in Iowa. There will be a surprise in New Hampshire, Chris. We just don't know.
That's why we play the game. That's why we love this as much as we love this, because it is the most fascinating story, and it's the only thing that human beings do in America, other than the NFL, to spend this much money and have outcomes that are pretty much unpredictable.
Chris, thanks. And that's why they poll, too, to give us a measure of how folks are relating to voters out there. Chris, thanks. Have a great weekend. Chris Darwalt there in D.C. You bet.
So, a reminder, the next Republican debate is now just days away. Now that we've got that lineup set for the evening, Fox Business Network and the Wall Street Journal team up in Milwaukee on Tuesday evening, November 10th. The first debate gets started at 7 p.m. Eastern and is followed by the main event at 9 p.m. Eastern with all the expert analysis on either side of that equation. It's going to be a fascinating evening, I think. And all that is on the Fox Business Network. There's going to be room for the folks in that first debate, as we saw in ours. Carly Fiorina really made her mark that night. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. We have a new storyline, though.
We do.
Going into Tuesday night.